y'all? Hey, this is DIY Secrets. What up, y'all? Get this on. Yeah, dog, what up? How you doing, man? Yeah.
Yes. And that's how you start off FarFetched DIY Secrets. Welcome, everybody. This is the first module. I brought in my great friend, Jelani Buchanan. He's a DJ, he's a producer, he's a videographer, he's a gamer. What else do you do, man?
Oh, man, a lot of things. Well, seriously, y'all, I'm honestly a network congregator among, trying to make myself better every day. So that's what this DIY Secrets is about, making yourself better. If you weren't trying to do that, you wouldn't be here now, so welcome.
So this is the first module you're gonna see, and this really comes from the number one question I get from artists that I work with. I've managed a lot of artists over the years, 10 years in the game now, and the number one question or number one thought is, I don't have enough money, or how do I get money to do what I wanna do? How do I get money to make my craft? And so this is how to fund your dream. We're gonna go through a few strategies that will show you how you can make some money to either get that studio time or get some equipment to record at your house, things like that, to travel, and basically make your music business side even stronger.
Absolutely, sounds good.
Let's get into it.
Right.
Step one, or number one, the number one strategy to fund your dream is to get a job. I know that's not sexy, but can we talk about how that works and why that's one of the best strategies to use?
Absolutely. So getting a job is super important, and honestly, it's gonna be how you kickstart your career if it hasn't already started, and if it's already started, you already understand. But let's elaborate. So having a job is important because what you're gonna need to do is optimizing your resources, and to be real, you're gonna be paid the most to do something that you like least to do. That's kind of the just reality of things. So even while you're doing that, a lot of people just break even, pay bills, and sometimes that ends up being bad because they need a rainy day fund. So you essentially want to put yourself in the mindset when you have a job, if you don't already have a job, when you have a job, to put some of that away. It's like essentially thinking about it like a tithe at church.
Yep.
You pretty much take a little bit of it every week and put it away for a rainy day. And that's essentially what you need to do when you have a job. So that's one way to make the funds count.
Indeed, that's exactly what we say in the guide. It's just incremental, it's slow, it's not sexy, but it will work. And if you save just $20 a week, there's 52 weeks in a year. That's $1,000 in a year. Now, if you can do that delayed gratification and hold off for that whole year, you have $1,000 at the beginning of next year to spend on your craft. So number two is to ask friends and family. So
oh, man.
Tell me about how that goes.
Oh man, it's one that I struggle with the most, but it's definitely come in handy, and my friends and family have reassured me that if that's necessary, then I can lean on them. But asking friends and family is probably one of the ways that you're gonna need to get to that extra little bit to make it happen, right? A lot of the times that comes in the form of, maybe I just need a small loan to start the LLC. Maybe I need a small loan to get this piece of equipment that's a bit more expensive than I can afford right now. But also when you're doing this, make sure that you plan to pay them back. That is so important, because even if, in most cases, when it's your friends or family, they're gonna say, no, you don't have to. But even so, in your career, when you're borrowing money from friends and family, it's important to pay them back. Even though they're gonna tell you that you don't have to do that, you still want to hold yourself accountable to making sure that you owe it to yourself to pay them back.
Strategy number three is to gig hard. If you're at the point that you can get paid for what you do, you gotta go hard on the gigs. Tell me about what you've been through in that regard.
Oh my goodness, so gigging is one of the most underrated features of making money, because once you're at a point where you're proficient at your craft, at least enough to be able to have a good turnaround that's consistent and dependable, gigging is the next step. What you're gonna do is become a DJ if you can't get enough shows, you know, the lowest hanging fruit, you know what I mean? Music cultivation is key here, especially in this niche, but in any niche you're in, you can gig to do art shows, you can gig to do, you know, art commissioned art for people, you know, one-off gigs. I know a few people who make tie-dye shirts for people. That's one of the many ways to make money is to gig hard, but you have to be concise and work towards your proficiency so that it's easy for you to gig.
And the key there is to be consistent. Like if you only do it a little bit here and there, that's why we say hard, because if you only do it a little bit here and there, then you're only gonna get a little bit of money, and it may start to cost you to do these things. So you wanna make sure that you do it consistently and a lot.
Absolutely.
So the next strategy is to charge money for a feature, and there's 3 parts to this little strategy here. Can you tell me about some of those ideas when it comes to a feature?
Absolutely. So there's 3 main ways that you are able to make a bit of money from doing features. One, you can essentially be a feature on people's projects for commission. So you could have X amount that you want to charge just to have your works on their works, and then pretty much you get a payout for royalties, or if you decide to just do it a one-off, you can do it that way too. Another way is to be able to actually write songs for people to actually perform on their part. So you could have works where if you kind of self-conscious about your stage presence, your performance, your proficiencies at the performing aspect, but you know how to write a mean tune or a mean hook, go ahead and do that. Put it out there that folks who are looking, that have the voice but don't have the writing know-how, can go ahead and pick it up, and go ahead and pick it up from there and work together. The third way is by actually being a producer and composing something for people that they can put their writing over, or their, you know, proficiencies that they share with you. So those are 3 biggest ways that you can really get work for feature work.
And a lot of the times, that's where most of the money in the industry is songwriting and producing. We'll talk about licensing a little bit later, but those combined are really the main strategy to monetize what you're trying to do in the music industry. So, strategy number 5 is to buy and sell merchandise. Tell me about your experience in buying and selling merchandise.
Well, now that you mention it, it's super important. And I only know that because I experience going to live shows and supporting my friends who do multiple amazing things. Visual art, performing art, and a lot of the ways that you can show support, other than just sharing what they perform and what they provide to the public, is to actually support the brand by being essentially a billboard, right? So to give you an idea, this shirt here is done by a local artist. I'm wearing it mostly because I appreciate their brand and I like it personally, but I know that they would appreciate the spread of the word about their brand. Also, in addition to that, getting your own merch is important too. And keep in mind that once you decide to do that, a lot of the times you have to pay a really big upfront cost, whether that's making a design or getting the design commissioned to make, or that's creating the funds to get the materials in bulk. So either way, bigger upfront cost than it is long-term, but long-term it's good for your brand.
And really the only way to get around that is to use a service like Printful. We've started to use them, but in the past we have had to have inventory on hand, which we're trying to get rid of now. But you know, the upfront cost is usually there, and we also pay a percentage every time something's sold. So next we're going to get into strategy number 6, and that's apply for grants. So have you had any experience with applying for grants? Can you tell me about that?
I have not had experience yet, but I have essentially been in making the plans to maintain a brand. Grants has been a part of that. And the biggest thing is that I've learned in trying to get the resources to properly do that, is that I need to have a good establishment for my brand. That means at least the materials to make a good EPK, the good materials to actually have a good social media presence, and also to have works that have already been out. And also there's a couple aspects of applying for a grant that include just being able to write and provide your own resources for your EPK so that you know that whoever is providing the grant can actually know that it's worth the investment. Grants have different stipulations on them, like not every grant is made the same, but there are always things that you can generally consider to make the chances of you getting that grant better.
Yeah, and like Jelani said, there are a number of skills that are combined to go into a grant application. Number one is persuasive writing. In our FarFetched DIY Secret number 21, How to Write Great Copy, you'll learn a little bit more about that, but I definitely would advise that you go and look up whatever resources you can find when it comes to writing better and persuasive writing and things like that. But then it's also budgeting and timeline, like figuring out, you know, timelines for things. I've gotten a number of grants before, normally from the Regional Arts Commission here in St. Louis, but there are other grants that we've applied for and gotten for other projects besides FarFetched. So the final strategy number 7, is when you are good enough to get grants, there's other options like licensing and things like that. So can you, I don't know if you've been licensed or anything like that, but can you speak to licensing?
Sure. So essentially, when licensing music, the way that I've approached it in the past is I've had to consider that back in the day when I was first starting, it was easy to put your stuff up online and just have it in the Creative Commons and just have whatever happens and not really be concerned. If you're not super concerned about sales or anything like that, it is super easy to just put your music out and just have people hear it. Now, there is a difference between that and licensing. When you license, of course, you gotta take a little more stuff into consideration. Each body of work has to usually be linked to you in a way to where, you know, you guarantee you can prove that it's yours. You guarantee don't have any samples that are not yours, that don't belong to you. And also, most importantly, that you're able to put your works out there to make sure that folks that are looking for somebody to make some music for them can find you easily. So those things combined are a lot to consider, like when they're separated. But if you do it repeatedly, you get the hang of it, and it becomes easy to have a body of work that you can easily license.
That's great. Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, yeah, make sure all your registrations are intact and in order. We'll talk about those in later guides, but you may have to do a little bit of, forward work to find the people that are gonna get your music and want it in TV or movies and things like that. And then you have to decide whether you want it to be exclusive or non-exclusive. Exclusive being like, this is a beat that is sold exclusively to you, you own it, I won't use it for anything else. Or non-exclusive, where I might use it for you and I might use it for a number of other artists, or may have already used it for other people. Thank you, Jelani, for your perspective, the artist perspective. I really need that. As a manager, I'm not really a performing artist, so I like to bring in folks that have that perspective of a performing artist to give a little bit more nuance and knowledge to the people out there. But yeah, man, thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you later on.
It's been my pleasure.
Peace, y'all.
Nice, dude. Yeah.
One down.
Awesome.